Hi, my name's Joe. I'm a CS student here at JMU, and I'm going to be walking you through a mini tutorial using the scanner class. The objectives for this tutorial are shown above. Click anywhere on the slide to continue. As we develop programs in Java, we often want to write interactive software which allows the user to enter data with the keyboard. However, reading input directly from system.in, the standard input device, is not straightforward. Fortunately, Java includes a class, the scanner class, which helps to overcome this difficulty. The scanner class hides the tricky details of reading data from input streams and offers a simple interface for getting data from the user. Java does not provide access to the scanner class by default. Instead, scanner resides in java.util, one of Java's optional libraries. In order to use scanner, we must ask Java to make it available for our program. We make this request using an import statement. An import statement consists of two parts, the import keyword and a target. The import keyword tells Java that we need to access resources from its class libraries. The target specifies the class or collection of classes that we want Java to make available. This particular example shows how to import the scanner class. Java does not permit us to write import statements wherever we want. All import statements must occur near the beginning of the source file before any class definition. Recall that Java's data types fall into two broad categories, primitive types and reference types. Each of these categories has its own set of rules. Most of the data types we have seen so far have been primitive types. However, scanner is a reference type, so we have to follow the rules for reference type variables in order to use it. In order to use a class such as scanner, we must do two things. First, we declare a variable having the scanner class data type. This variable can hold a reference to a scanner object. Second, we need to create an instance or object by invoking the scanner's constructor and assigning the result to our variable. We call this process instantiation. The argument system.in, which we pass to the scanner's constructor in this example, configures our new scanner object to read input from the keyboard. We will develop a better understanding of this process in a later lesson. Right now, we just need to know enough to be able to use scanner. Once we have instantiated a scanner object, we can begin using it to get input from the user. Let's see how to write a small Java program which reads in an integer using the scanner class. First, we need to declare a variable type int to hold the data we will read from the keyboard. We'll call this variable number. We then declare a scanner class type variable for holding the reference to the scanner object. We'll call this variable input. Next, we instantiate a scanner object and store a reference to it in input. We pass system.in to the constructor to indicate that we want to read from the keyboard. Before we try to read input from the keyboard, we should print a message that tells the user what we want him or her to enter. We should never make the user guess at what we're looking for. Finally, we call the input's next int method and store its result, an integer value entered by the user, into a number. Now let's compile and run this program so we can see the scanner in action. Good, the program is running correctly. It printed out our prompt to the user and is now waiting for input from the keyboard. Let's enter number 77 and see what happens. As soon as we hit enter, scanner read 77 into the variable number. The program then resumed execution and finished by printing 77 to the console as we expected. Scanner has other useful methods like next double and next line. They work the same way as next int, except they read in other types of input. Let's take a look at a program payroll.java from page 87 of the textbook in order to see both of these methods in action. Payroll.java is set up in the same way as our previous example, except that it asks the user to enter three pieces of data, a string, an int, and a double. It then does a small computation using this data and reports the result to the user. Now let's try running this program. The program wants us to enter the string first. Then we need to enter the integer. Finally, we have to enter a double. As you can see, the scanner class makes reading user input very easy. However, scanner has one subtle problem that we need to watch out for. In order to demonstrate this problem, let's change the program to make it ask for the user's name last. Although we've only changed the order that the program reads its input, the result may be surprising. Let's compile and run this program to see what happens. First, we get to enter an integer. Next, we get to enter a double. So far, everything is working correctly, but watch what happens next. We expected to enter our name last, but the program never gave us a chance. Instead, it seemed to skip over the call to the keyboard.next line altogether. The problem here is that the scanner behaves a little bit differently depending on whether it's reading in a numeric value or a string. Whenever we press the Enter key to submit an input to the program, we cause a new line character to be passed in as well. The scanner's readInt and readDouble methods simply ignore these new line characters. However, when it's time to read in a string, the scanner immediately encounters the new line character left over from the previous numeric input, and it thinks that we have entered an empty string. Fortunately, we can easily fix this problem. All we have to do is insert an additional call to keyboard.nextLine before we try to read in the name. This call will consume the new line character which was left over from the previous entry. We don't need to assign the result of this new call to a variable. We can simply throw it away and continue on with the program. Now let's see how this change affects our program. This time we're able to enter our name again. Our program consumed the new line left over from the previous numeric input, and it now correctly waits for the next entry. In general, we need to consume the new line anytime we use a scanner to read a string after reading a number. As long as we keep this in mind while using scanner, then reading input from the user is easy. Finally, let's look at another small problem we may encounter when entering data into a program. The program wants us to enter an integer. However, let's try entering a string instead. Since we didn't enter the type of value scanner expected, our program raises an exception and quits. We'll learn how to handle this problem in a later lesson, but for now, we can't do anything about it. I hope you've enjoyed this tutorial. If you'd like to learn more, please refer to Chapter 2.13 in our Gaddis text.